Hello YouTube and welcome back. I am the Rubricker and this is building instructions for the ball factory, part 10. Today we're going to be building the ball loader. This is what loads the balls into the buckets, and we'll complete the timing for the ball lifter along with the ball loader, get the whole thing integrated into the machine, and be that much closer to being finished. So let's get started. I don't like shooting handheld video because it usually ends up a little bit shaky, but with this part here, something that I found very important, this, in this direction, you need to make sure it's on tight. If it's not on tight, you'll find that as it slides back and forth, it'll jam, or it'll bind up and things will come apart. So, point of thought, make sure that's good and tight. Alright everybody, welcome back. We have got the ball loader and the ball lifter in place. Now, if I run it, obviously nothing is timed right. That would be knocking balls off of the lifter. The dump lever is firing when the lifter is at the other end. We need to get this timing straightened out. So, first of all, let's have a look. We need this dump activator to trigger when the lift assembly gets all the way to this end. So let's bring it all the way to that end. And it's right here we want it to be dumping. So let's move this pin to the bottom where it'll activate to dump. So now we can see that that's triggering the dump. And then it goes back to the other side. Alright, so that works for that, which is all tied onto this axle, how it runs back and forth, everything. Now, you may also notice when it's running back and forth, you'll see mine's running nice and smooth. Here's some things that can cause you trouble. Let me just set some stuff out of whack a little bit here. Let's try that. Uh-oh. I can't break it now. Sometimes when things are too loose, they bind. Some things to remember when you're setting up your timing is when you're setting up the back gearing here, where I like to line it up is as best as possible, this part sticking straight out, perpendicular. Let's see if I can get a better angle on that. So yeah, this lever sticking straight out perpendicular, with the axle here sticking straight up. That gets you a nice central location, so halfway is right when this is straight up and down. So that as it goes back and forth, it happens quite smoothly. Alright? If you find that this is binding as it slides back and forth, where I've found useful, or what I've found useful, is this 1x3 thin lift arm. Wow, I'm almost out of frame here. This 1x3 thin lift arm and the yellow one that I have underneath, if they're loose, so if they're not pressed down together over this 9 axle, it tends to allow the whole assembly to bind. With that in place, and also what I've found is with these 12s, make sure that they're almost a little bit bowed in, just a little bit tight. And then from there, you get nice smooth moves in here. This is the biggest cause of friction in my system when I built it. It took me a while to get it to run smoothly, and it was just that it was loose. So something as simple as that can cause you a heap of trouble. Now, some of you might be looking at this going, that elastic isn't Lego, and you'd be absolutely right. I never did manage to find the Lego elastic that works here. What this is, depending on where you're watching this from, there's a product in Canada called Silly Bands. They're essentially small elastics that kids use to make elastic jewelry, bracelets and stuff. This is one of those. So you could probably get 100 of them for $1. They're super cheap. If you have any kids that go to school, likely you've got them kicking around the house. Elementary school, likely you've got them kicking around the house. The other option would be perhaps to build a small counterbalance weight that sits here, but that just makes this assembly more heavy. So the elastic is the best way to go. It's just something to put a little bit of tension on here so that when a ball gets lifted in, it holds it. And it doesn't hold it by much. In fact, I was having a small problem before where it wasn't quite holding enough. But yeah, that holds the balls, they get to the end, and they get released on the dump. Okay, one more thing to set up for timing. Obviously the lifter is not lifting at the right time. So turning the axle counterclockwise, we want our lifter to lift when this guy is right above. So what we'll do is we'll disengage the gear that connects the two sides together. We'll drive, there we go. We'll drive the main gear. So we've disconnected from sliding this bushing out of the way and this gear out of the way. We're going to drive this till it gets, oh, what do you know? I have another timing thing to set up. Right here. Haven't set this up yet. I noticed it because this isn't coming all the way to the end. So I'm not quite at the end here. So what we'll do is slide this in. This gets us closer to the elevator side by sliding further in this way. That's firing too tight. Oops. And when you run it in the wrong direction, you run the risk of stuff coming apart. So that comes in nicely, comes right to the edge, which is what we want to see. And then pulling back the other way, it gets to the end and it keeps pulling. So we need to loosen this off a bit more. Just a bit. There we go. That goes all the way, this comes all the way back. So this is right to the back of that axle. All right, so that's set up. Now, turning this gear, let's get it right to where it's ready to pick up. Just before this is pointing straight back, so just a little shy. And we're going to turn this, also counterclockwise, to just as it starts to lift. And right as it starts to lift, let's lock that gear in, get everything locked together. We should be able to run it manually. And to test, drop in a couple of balls. They get pushed into place. The loader comes up to get the balls, lifts them into the loader, and is pulling away as it moves away. So I'm running this real slow, and it should dump. All right. This is now set up. You don't want to adjust any of the timing of any of these components. Pushes into place, lifts into the grab claws, and dumps. Perfect. Let's pull in the rest of the machine. Now you'll remember from the previous video, let's move these out of the way here. Right on this axle here is how the system marries up. I'm going to pull these 2x6 plates out for now, just so we can set it side by side. So that when we run it, and we're going to switch to our test gear again, and the reason why is we need to run it slow to see where everything is sitting. So on the battery box, I'm going to pull off the lock, and I'll move the motor down to the test position and add that additional gear. Now remember, it's going in the opposite direction. Switch your battery box in the opposite direction. Okay, everything's running slow, but everything's running smoothly. You'll notice, let's get this better into frame here. Okay, you'll notice that the bucket unloader and the bucket loader both come to the center at the same time. Since while they're in center, we want the wheel not to move. When they're away, it's when we want the wheel to move. We don't want the ball loader to be dropping balls into the wheel while it's moving. So we'll get everybody to the center. We'll slide the board apart, and turning this axle counterclockwise, we will also get our ball loader to the center, and we'll reconnect it to the system. And let's have a look how that runs. Everybody pulls away from center. The ball loader's a little bit delayed, so we want to advance it just a little bit. We'll go a quarter turn there. Still a little bit. We'll do a quarter turn more. That's pretty darn close. I'm going to try just one more quarter. I think I got a quarter in there. No. There we go. So, one more quarter. Everything comes into the center at the same time. Everything moves away at the same time. Nice and straightforward. We should be able to pull our bucket wheel, our load wheel, in. We'll drop that onto the machine. Line everything up. There we go. And all of our extra buckets. We'll get them into place. And we'll run this in slow. So you'll see, if we drop the balls, they'll go into place. They get pushed in, they get lifted, moved over, and dropped into the buckets. That is perfection. Look at that. So we got our ball loader and our ball lifter in place. We'll just drop these buckets in. We'll pull out our test gear and we'll fire it up in full speed. You'll be able to see how it's supposed to run. So I got a bit of a closer angle on this one just because of the parts that are important, namely right here, our loader assembly. So let's grab these couple of balls here. In fact, I'm going to go grab some more. More balls. I'll manually fill up the small hopper. We've taken out our test gear, so I'm going to put our lock back on the battery box. I don't want to accidentally run this thing backwards and completely mess up all of my timing settings. So let's get that lock back on. There we go. And I'm ready to load it with some balls. And we'll flip our switch so that they just end up back into our cup at the end. You probably didn't see that because that's off a frame. And you may notice one ball didn't make it in. That's exactly what I was talking about before, where the grip is not quite tight enough. The elastic I've got in there right now, I've had in there for several months. It's probably dry, probably a little bit stretched out, might need to be replaced. I think a proper Lego one would probably last a lot longer. But for what I've got in there, I could probably just throw another one in and not have to worry about it for a long time again. Let me just throw a few more through and then we'll call it a day. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. There's only 2 parts left in this entire build. So we just finished now part 10. Part 11, for those of you who are looking to build a spiral lift, that's what's coming up next. So subscribe if you're very interested in that, or if you're looking to finish this entire project. The 12th part will just be the hoppers for the elevator and the return conveyor at the back of the machine, and that will complete this entire project. Thanks again for watching. I'm the Rebricker, and I'll see you again soon.